Advertising is dead. It's all business now. And a core part of this evolving business landscape is the creator economy. So, for us to understand the creator economy, I thought I'd get in a guest who will not just tap into how it's affecting how businesses function and brands market, but also about how creators are really growing to be a part of it and how this is all shaping culture and especially internet culture. Shephali Bhatt is my guest today. She's been one of my go-to journalists to understand the creator economy and especially internet culture. And we dig into a lot of pieces in this conversation. And for anybody who wants to understand and unpack the phenomena that is the creator economy, this one's a must listen. I'm Varun Duggirala. Be right back with my chat with Shephali Bhatt. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Shephali. Hello. We're doing this finally in person.
Hi Varun. So glad that I'm finally here. I have finally arrived in life.
Not technically, but I would say that you've been on Think Fast before. So we've had a chat on this. So you arrived then only. Then let me put it that.
This is my sequel of Arrival.
Sequel of Arrival in that sense. I wanted to get you on the podcast because I think for the longest time, I feel we've been these people who connected digitally.
Yeah.
And I've always enjoyed your perspective on the entire space, be it around what's happening through internet culture, lately a lot more about the creator economy and everything else. I would say you have gone, I'd say your deep dives into just like how the creator space connects to culture on the internet to culture in real life. So much of that has actually been stuff I kind of look forward to kind of hit my inbox in that sense. But I want to start off by asking you, is this, when you look at this space, how do you see the creator economy? And I don't want to get into like numbers, right? People talk about, okay, 2,200 crore industry by 2025 and everything else. But I'm like, if you just look at it as an ecosystem versus maybe even like pre-pandemic maybe, how do you see it?
I think when you were asking me this question, I think in my head there was this picture of somebody traveling from somewhere in the Hindi belt up north, coming to Bombay, thinking that their life is going to change. Now Bombay has been replaced by a mobile screen.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a story of hope, right, for so many people. I guess that's what the creator economy is. It's the digital manifestation of so many people coming to Bombay, thinking that it's going to change their life. And a small percentage of that does manage to change their lives.
And that kind of happened with TikTok, right? I remember when TikTok first came to India, because till then, I go back to that time because I remember the creators online from an Indian perspective were largely comedians. You had all your stand-up guys who kind of graduated to having YouTube channels and they were just doing what they were doing. You had collectives having, let's say, channels, or maybe, I don't even think Bollywood got into it. I think music kind of got into it a little bit. But there was no like mass janta getting into the creator economy. And then suddenly TikTok happened and then suddenly it was this like, and I remember this and I think, and why I'm trying to think back to this time is, when that first set of videos start popping up and everybody download TikTok, a lot of people said, okay, this is not the kind of content I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And a lot of people also said, I don't like to watch this kind of content because we only were used to watch. It's really that Star World to Star Plus transition, which happened. That kind of happened for one set of urban consumers, but gave so much hope, right? To like, I would say broad, like, across, not even tier 2, tier 3, I'd say even beyond that.
Yeah. Not just I don't want to consume this kind of content. There were a lot of people who resisted to make that kind of content who eventually are doing that now.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are, the content has shifted to dancing. And basically that's what TikTok did, right? You basically changed your language. So now the prime language for your content to kind of be disseminated is through dance moves.
It's a beta naach ke dikhao came onto a screen because that's what you were all told to do as kids, right? If somebody come home, like, naach ke dikhao, ga ke dikhao. That's what it was all about.
It's like we grew up with, I remember, Barsore, Megha Megha, and a lot of these songs which had women who were dancing like no one's watching.
Yeah.
And now it's flipped. Yeah. Dance to make sure everyone's watching.
Yeah. And if you flash forward from then to now, obviously TikTok went away. Instagram tried to become TikTok, but didn't entirely do that. It's still like literally like the day we're recording is when they announced that finally Reels and videos will merge into one format. You also had like Josh and all the other Indian ones kind of who popped in. With all of that happening and suddenly YouTube kind of becoming this mainstay of entertainment. Look at it today. Is it still that same mobile screen piece which you said, or do you see this as a very different animal now?
I think there's a lot more. There's a lot more system to this, to chaos at this point. It was very chaotic and haphazard. So a lot of people have been able to streamline that. If you see a lot of the influencer marketing agencies that had come up, that were working with, say, the likes of Group M 5-6 years ago, a lot of them have now branched out into analytics. There were some companies that came up purely on the sort of base of analytics. But now these people have realized that, we can't just manage and represent talent. We also need to get into the numbers side. And so there is a lot of system that has come into it. 2 days ago, I think ASCII called out put out a list of influencers who did not react or did not engage with them when, an issue of ad disclosure came up. You see in the US, in the UK, in China, in so many of these markets where government is getting deeply involved in a lot of influencer marketing regulations. In China, I think there are 2 particular category of influencers where you need to have a proper qualification for you to put out content. I'm not sure. I think it is medical and legal.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. And so you see in India also you've had a couple of these regulations that have come into play. So I think there is a lot more of, organized creation that is happening within the creator economy at this point. That definitely has changed. But at the same time, because, you have all these people and the kind of reach that they have, and unlike I was discussing this with somebody a few months ago where we were talking about how many creators at this point are making more than 1 crore in a year.
Yeah, so many.
And easily over 100. And, at some point, even as a business journalist, you write about companies that have turnovers running into 5,000 crores, but it's, suddenly hits you, oh my God, this is where this industry has come. So it is a full-fledged industry now where more than 100 people are making, over 1 crore a year. It's massive.
I wonder, the interesting part then, and I don't know if this is actual data, right, is that I've seen that a lot of the finance creators, right, they really got into this very quickly. They're
just a 2-year-old category, a year and a half.
They're getting
into
commissions from people's transactions. It's become easy for them to do that. I know tech got into that as well in some ways. And I was talking to someone the other day, and the problem is that you look at finance, you look at tech, you look at maybe someone who's focused on a very clear-cut B2B kind of a thing. They're all making a lot more money. If you were, let's say, fashion or beauty, you would get barter, but do you make as much money is the question, right? Or you end up becoming, let's say, a Bhuvan Bam or a Prajakta Kohli, and you're going to making series, you're doing you're getting into roles into mainstream Bollywood in that sense. But that category of creator, as much as people say is interesting, the only way for them to kind of grow seems to be to become an actor in a web series.
Yeah, eventually.
But they won't be able to ever make the kind of money that, let's say, a finance creator will make.
Or, the tech influencers make the most money at this point. That's the highest paying category is what influencer marketing agencies tell me. And then you have, your entertainment folks and, influencers, obviously. And then you have these lifestyle folks. There is definitely a lot of elitism that you see within the creator economy as well, right? There is, I love to use this phrase, the haves and the have-nots of creator economy. So that does exist. You've seen format wars between, YouTubers and TikTokers.
Reaction videos, don't even get me started on that.
Oh yeah, how people hated the reaction video stars and look at how some of the biggest live streamers are just making reaction videos at this point.
And I think for a large audience who might not even know, if you look at the entire Sandeep Maheshwari and Prakhar thing that's been happening I don't know how long. And I've just been following to say, 1 second, there was a video and there was a reaction video of that video, and then there was a reaction video of that reaction video,
which started
the whole problem. But that's the way this works now. And I'm like, it's so interesting when you look at it. And then you have the entire gaming creator side, which is so interesting, because I remember Mithpat telling me that he said this is entertainment. I'm not playing the game. I'm doing voices. I'm doing he said, I'm mimicry karta tha. And mimicry on this thing. And I was watching another video with one of the international gaming creators, and he said that if you have to shoot something, you have to get lights, camera. He said, I can create the world in a game. Why do I need to spend any money?
I think gamers at this point you're playing the game and you're the commentator as well at the same time. So you're doing both, you're multitasking there as well.
So how does one can you even track this as one industry is my larger question? Because the tools are the same, but this is too many different streams to be called one industry.
Yeah, correct. And like you said, right, we were just discussing, right, before we started rolling, how a singer is also a creator, right? Because eventually for a brand, they are going to look at what your social media currency is. So for them, I guess it's, anybody who can influence.
Yeah.
It's a celebrity. It is, a tier 2 celebrity. It is a celebrity in a different language. And then it is an internet celebrity in different categories.
Yeah.
So I think from a brand's perspective, if you see, I would say the whole creator world is their oyster. And because of that, I guess there are these frictions, right? And therefore you have like this Matryoshka doll of like reaction pe ke andar reaction, uske andar ek aur reaction.
Yeah.
And that happens because there is a lot of competition here. So, while things are, there is an order that has been brought in, but there is like a new world order also that is emerging within this universe.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part also is, and I'm asking this also because you ask a young person today, and I'm seeing someone who's just finishing school, even saying, I don't want to go to college. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a creator. I always say, don't say I want to be an influencer. That's, you don't become an influencer. Correct. You gain influence. But a creator I get, YouTuber I get. And the tendency is say, okay, I don't want to do a job. I don't want to, study a course. I want to go for that.
Yeah.
And my question always been, but what do you want to do in that? How are you going to make money? And while there might be people who are making over 1 crore, a vast set of people aren't making any money out of this yet. Yeah,
that's 1 to 2% of the entire universe of creators who may be making that kind of money, or maybe 0.01% at this point. I think the one thing that generation especially needs to know, and I hope they understand, is that this is a full-fledged job. And the whole thing about, I don't want a 9-to-5 job, the whole tamasha thing about that's a boring mechanical job, it's only for your left brain. There is a lot of
so much left here as well.
Yeah, there are people now, like I remember Malika Dua was talking about this for a story that I recently wrote about creator shelf life, saying that going forward a lot of creators would want their advisors to tell them which are the startups that they need to invest in. So you need a lot of the left brain support here to sustain yourself. So people in that generation who want to become content creators because they think they have the talent for it and they can add some sort of value in any of these categories, they should definitely go for it. But they should know that this is a job. And maybe it is a 24/7 job.
It's a high-stress job.
Yeah, there are times like, in our lives, sometimes, and I won't be surprised if a lot of people, do secretly think about it. Do you sometimes think about it? I wish there were days when I just had a 9-to-5 job and after 5 p.m. I could just switch off, because we never switch off, right? It's
weird that I'm going to respond to this with a reel that I watched, which is, I think, is apt for this, for the way the world is right now. There's a reel about saying, I wanted to have more control over my life, so I quit my 9-to-5 job and became an entrepreneur. Now I work 24/7. And being a creator is exactly that, because what that does, and I feel there is one aspect which I know is spoken about, but I think the gravity of it will only be learned over time, is that the need to constantly create and then look at the data, analyze it, see what worked, didn't work. I think that ever since I started creating content, I look at the dashboard more than I look at content.
Wow.
Which is something which I have to stop myself from doing. Because the tendency, okay, when I made this reel 1 week ago, it did this much numbers this week. So maybe this time on this day is not working. Let's try a different time. Look at that graph of when things are peaking. The more I've spoken to creators, I've realized they're all data scientists.
Yeah.
The best ones, unless they're super entertaining and they just kind of go out there. And
I mean, if you have to get better at it, then you will have to, like you said, right? You'll have to do an A/B testing. So you'll have to see what's working for your audience. You're there to please the audience. Unless you're like, मैं अपने लिए लिखता हूँ.
Correct. And if you do well with that, then that's amazing, right?
Then that's a call.
Yeah. And it's like, I was talking to one of the creators, I think I was talking to Dev Rayani, and he was like, he's tried his best not to look at the data, because for him it's like, the process of creation is what he enjoys and he puts it out there. But for a lot of creators, especially those who want to become a creator because it seems like an exciting thing to do, it's so easy to fall out of love.
Yeah.
It becomes a job. And it becomes like, oh my God, I have to do 7 reels a week. I have to do this many LinkedIn posts. I have to be on Twitter also. I have to create YouTube videos also.
Yeah, there are people who, and you never know, Varun. I mean, I don't know if we'll get into a space where there's going to be like full automation and AI will be used to create content, because you know that, these are the kind of words I use. This is the template that I follow and this is how I react to things. Because there will be people who would want to please the algorithm more than wanting to please the audience all the
That's
time.
already there.
Yeah. So you're, you're creating for the algorithm and not for maybe what you got into this. So I guess that's also something, besides the fact that it's a job, there is a heavy amount of left braining that happens in this job if you want to continue, if you want to sustain. And there are people who can choose not to do that, and they will still probably grow, but maybe not at the same pace as others who are bringing in the left training.
Yeah.
At the same time, you can't beat the algorithm. So,
which also changes constantly.
Correct, right? So there is you can't win, there's no winning against the algorithm. Yeah. So people also need to understand that what they're getting into is heavily influenced by people who get bored very easily, who have short attention spans, just like them.
Yeah.
Like we have to think about, as I think it's petrifying being a creator at this point, because as a consumer, you realize that you move on and you don't remember, like this happens with me so often. I like somebody's content and then I can't remember the name of the person.
You can't find them again.
Yeah. Like this once I legit went with my, a friend who's also in the content space, and we were talking about the content creators whose content we enjoy. And I said, oh, there's this naya aaya hai market mein. But, same template as this other person, just like, young kid, probably, just out of school, exam stress. So kind of, just making content around that. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember the name of this person. And I knew for sure that I was following this person. Yeah. And, you sometimes get into this whole thing of, yaar, uska kya naam tha? Yeah. I went through my following list first to check who this person is.
I know exactly what you mean. I've done this so many times.
After that, I came up with this hack. I was like, okay, this guy makes content like so-and-so person, whose name I know because that person is like, already established 3-4 years he's been doing this. Yeah. I'm pretty sure this guy follows that guy. So I went into that person's account, looked at the mutuals.
Oh my God.
That's how I found the name. It took me 30 minutes of my life.
I've actually done this to find...
on a weekday.
So my weird... I would say we all have creator quirks of people who we follow. I got this from Rohit. I'm putting this on record. Rohit, my best friend, co-founder, he got me into this. Real estate creators in India. Oh. The best. They are so awesome. They're like, ye dekhiye Chandigarh ka ghar. And it's an entertainment package. That 60 seconds, it's not a house tour. You are entertained just about how he sells it. Like, forget the names. And we hope we will find them, put them. But I'm like, that's a salesman who's figured a way to make selling it's a broker, literally. The brokers doing the videos. But this is a fun broker. I mean, literally, I've seen videos of houses in Chandigarh. I'm never going to buy a house in Chandigarh, but I'm watching it. It's so entertaining. And I think that's the thing, right? It's end of the day, the creator economy is the tool set that the platforms have given and said, okay, these are the platforms, you do what you want to do with it. And at some point, it's either aiding a business or it's aiding a performing career that you want to have, almost as your portfolio. The problem is when you haven't thought about either and you're just doing it saying, oh, I want to be a creator for the sake of it. And then some point you're like, why am I doing this? Yeah. And then you meet brands who are themselves trying to figure out how to, look at what we just spoke about, right? We've spoken about so many varied things within the creator economy. If I'm a brand today, I am more confused today than I was like even a couple of years ago. And which means you rely on the dashboards, you rely on the analytics companies, you rely on the influencer agencies, but it's not easy for a brand to put together an influencer management strategy. Yeah,
it's hard. You also, like I remember one of the music labels, because now music labels have also heavily gotten into this, right? To market their songs. And for them also, they have separate teams whereby the only job of the team is to figure out which creator has become irrelevant in the next cycle of their new song release. And so they're constantly finding newer people to engage with, to make sure that their song reaches, that set of audience. Because they also realize, like I said, right, everybody is also now taking a step back and thinking of themselves as consumers first and thinking, okay, this is how I behave as a consumer of this content. And therefore, I have to understand that, everybody else is also a consumer first. People are not going to, people are not looking at the dashboard that you're looking. They don't know that okay, this is something that has worked with you. Another thing that, again, Malika had said, which is that creator does not have a shelf life, but content does.
It's true.
which means like, if she were to do the Delhi Didi or the Delhi auntie again today, then people, her audience would be like, this is dated, like you've done this.
Yeah.
But somebody else can pick up that shtick right now and they are fresh.
Yeah.
So that would work.
Yeah.
But for them also, they have to then constantly think of something else.
Yeah.
It's the same with brands.
So true. And I thought the cut copy pasteness of a lot of influencer strategies have gone away, but they're still there. You constantly see that. You've seen a setup of, this is an ad.
Yeah.
It's a billboard. There are billboard influencer strategies, and then there are actual influencer strategies.
Where I think creator economy is going to be a boon is for people who are good at this, but they already have another career. So like you mentioned, the real estate creators.
Yeah.
So Ankit from CoinSwitch recently shared this particular channel of a truck driver. And this is a truck driver who basically just talks about his life as a truck driver.
Yeah.
And his son edits the video and packages it for YouTube. And this guy is getting like, hundreds of thousands of views. It is just fascinating, the kind of stories that we are getting to see because of, the popularity of creator economy. Yeah. Doctors, lawyers, people in every sector, if they are comfortable with looking at a screen and talking to a screen as opposed to a real person, they will definitely benefit from this, because that just becomes their marketing channel then. Yeah. So that is something that I'm, really bullish on. So those people will definitely have an advantage over others who can't do that. Everybody wanting to become just a content creator.
That's the problem.
That really worries me because, I can't, you can look up, there are videos of how to do a particular operation as well. But if you've learned how to do a particular operation from a YouTube video.
This is not 3 Idiots. I'm just like putting this out there for anybody.
Yeah. That is worrying, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, especially in markets where you don't have these kind of regulations, they become these kind of experts. And then they start parroting, okay, I am an expert. Nobody is going to check. If you put something on your bio in any of the social media platforms, it's not like you're putting your degree there. Yeah. Nobody's going to check. And these days, people don't check if, there's this whole Google scam, which has become so big, right? Where you look up some service customer care number on Google, and people have kind of scammed and put their number as opposed to the official number. Yeah. And you call these people and they turn up at your house to repair anything in your house as experts. It is just that, like, unless you're physically going to a space where you see their, certificates, you just like see this and you don't realize in that moment that this person may not be an expert. Yeah. वो चमकता नहीं है उस time पे. When something comes up in our algorithm because we have spoken to somebody in real life saying that this is something that we need, and then suddenly we get it, so it is also easy, right? Because it's come at me, so you feel like अच्छा मतलब it's coming at me, so like it's universe का कुछ cosmic है. It's made it easier for me, and I don't have to go and look it up. And I'm getting it directly. And you don't think for a second, maybe this is not kosher. Yeah.
And there's so much of, that's a great point. I was going to tap into this comment, but I've been told I need to go for a break. So we'll do that to be right back with Advertising is Dead. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're back from our structured advertising break. We're still talking to Shephali. Now, before we went for break, we were talking about the fact that there's so much scamming that happens as well, right? You get everything from, you can get this many followers to this is something you can buy. I know people who have bought stuff off something they've kind of seen online, and that is not a legit thing. But I think in the broader space, what we don't realize, whenever there is a media space, there's always enough scamming rather, but there's also enough like darkness to it, right? I think about how comments function today. I think about just the toxicity that can come out on a live. I have never seen a live video where it's not toxic with the comments, and I don't even get it. I don't know. It tells me something about how culture people are and culture actually is, because I've been on like a brand panel which is live streamed and the comments are random. I'm like, how does that even make sense?
Yeah. Again, I think Bollywood kut ke bhara hai hamari veins ke andar. I was just thinking about, what Sunil Dutt says in Munna Bhai, all these people, they're just like filled with rage and they're just going to take it all out on you. Yeah. I guess it just takes a very extreme turn online because there are not going to be consequences.
So, and I say that also because if you're a brand today, if you're a creator today, and you're putting something out there and you see this happening, there is a part of you saying, okay, why am I doing this? I know a lot of people say I ignore the comments. I don't think everybody really ignores the comments. Everyone looks at those.
Yeah.
Like I get a chupkar, I'm like, but kyun? I'm with a smiley, right? That's what my way of like literally, I'm like, I shame the person. I'm like, but why? Tell me. I want to know. Why should I be quiet? But that's easy for me to say. But I know that like when I talk to women creators, I know for a fact that what they get across their DMs, etc., is horrific, right?
Yeah,
I don't think guys face half that brunt, and I'm generalizing here.
I actually wrote about it, and we got some of the influencer marketing agencies to send us the worst comments that their women creators get or diverse set of creators get versus what the male creators get. And here's what I found. The comments on like the worst category of comments the male creators would get is, you're not even funny. How can you laugh like that? You're fat. So they'll body shame them, or they'll just say you're not funny. Like that's the worst you can say to a man, I guess, it seems, on the internet. To the women, I think it doesn't even start with that. Like it starts at the
barrel,
most. It's horrifying, the kind of comments that that a woman creator gets.
And I think I go into that because, when you're talking about an economy of any kind, it has different parts to it, right? One is the people who are actually creating what is the front-facing part of the business. Then on the other end, there is people who are taking care of the, like, I call this admin work. There should be an administrativeness to taking care of this. And I don't blame the platforms as much as a lot of people do, because I'm like, look at the volume. This is like, most platforms have been built.
Who do you blame then?
I don't know who to blame. That's my thing, right? The easy target is to blame the platform.
I think we should just change, look at it differently. I think it's not about whom to blame. It's about who should be more responsible.
That's true.
And I guess everybody in that food chain needs to be more responsible. Including the audience, right? Like you have to be like, somebody is out there spending all that time, energy, right and left brain into bringing something to you, to which could be entertaining, which could be meaningful, and you just like any because you can, and that they are not going to sort of come back with another, like with a retort. It just becomes easier for the audience also to say mean, nasty things. For the platforms, it just becomes easier for them to say, oh my God, we didn't see this coming, and then now there's too much, how do we make sense of it? For the creators, I think there are some set of creators who are very discerning and who think before sort of putting things out, who are responsible about the kind of content that they're putting out. Then there are others who don't. And because they have millions of followers, it somehow,
they can say and do whatever they want.
It somehow becomes a shield, right? So in a way, there are people who are also able to negate very valuable criticism because they think that these are just toxic trolls. So I guess everybody should also have advisors, around them who are not yes people.
Which, if you think about it, is actually, if you look at a celebrity or someone in the in show business, I won't even say Bollywood or anything, that is the ecosystem they all have always had, right? You'd have a person with PR, you'd have a manager, you'd have someone to kind of work on, you have makeup, you have all of that stuff.
Correct.
Similarly, today, a creator, I think the economy part came in when all of those people started coming around.
Correct.
The people, like I remember the first time, one of the earliest episodes of this show, we spoke about IP law. And one of the first DMs I'd gotten after the episode came out was saying, oh, I want to learn how to read a contract. Can you send me one? Which I thought was a very interesting question from someone. I'm like, I can't send you my contract. It might not make sense to you.
Correct.
But there are ways for you to kind of just Google it and find some. But it's just that, is that there are so many aspects to a creator, and those are all jobs. And I feel that oftentimes someone says, I want to work in the creator space. You don't have to be a creator. You could be an editor. You could be a lawyer for all. And that's, I think, the untapped part. Like, that is so much opportunity.
That is very true. I think financial advisors, legal advisors, somebody who's also into quality advising, and like I said, right, not having people around you who are just focused on getting you the better brand deals, focused on getting you featured on the cover of magazines, or basically just getting you publicity. I think you need some public consciousness advisors as well.
Therapists for creators. I was talking to someone who's building a mental health startup, and they're tuning it towards people who work in the entertainment space and people who are creators, because what they face requires
you require a very different kind of understanding. You also need to because I mean, I can't assume on their behalf, but it's like being a journalist, there are a lot of things that we go through that are hard for other people to understand. At this point, the world over, and when you say the world over, you normally mean the US, unfortunately or fortunately. And the US has started this discourse on how newsrooms don't really understand what journalists who write about the internet go through.
Correct.
And people do not understand that. I think somebody, had recently, a US-based journalist had done this thread where they had compared journalists with content creators, and how, journalists are also creators in that sense, but their roles are very different. Where a creator's job is to please the audience, a journalist's job is to speak truth to power, which may not always be pleasing to the audience. And therefore, the backlash is something which is very personal, very virulent, and very targeted. Like, you write about one creator and you're critical about that creator, the entire army of fans come at you. And that's very different from,
the weird part is that it's an army of fans who, in many ways, are almost blinded to. I think that's a general thing. It's a broader.
That fandom is kind of like problem. has like certain sections that will obviously be in denial and will not be questioning. But I guess that questioning then should come from everybody, like I said, within the food chain. So everybody has to kind of ask hard questions. Starting from the person who wants to become a content creator, they need to ask hard questions off of themselves. How can I sustain this? How can I add value? How can I also be reasonably happy while I'm doing this? So that's where it starts. Then when you get to every benchmark that you cross, you have to again ask yourself these questions, but also now ask, I am responsible because a lot of people are influenced by me now. So how can I not spread fake news? How can I not spread misinformation? And, like recently what happened, I think in the case of Vault, I think that has taught a lot of the finfluencers, how can I make sure that, if things go south, then I should not be held responsible for that.
I was when that whole controversy happened, where obviously a bunch of these finance creators, some of the top ones, right, kind of spoke about Vault as this mutual fund for crypto, and people bought it, and then Vault did what it, obviously going through the crypto downturn, stopped withdrawals, and the backlash they got. In my head, I'm thinking about, and because I come from the time of television, I've worked in it, man, I'm like, mutual funds are subject to market risk. I was like, that part.
Where was this disclaimer?
And let's be honest, nobody reads that disclaimer, but we all know it's there, and it's so embedded in our heads that I can speak out that entire mutual funds disclaimer verbatim because I've heard it so many times. So you remember there is a disclaimer.
I think the difference between commercials, ad commercials, and as in TV commercials versus what we see here is that somewhere in your subconsciously, that an actor is acting when they're in an ad. Sure, these are people, they're just like you, and you've seen them, they've risen to
I bought this, I got money out of this.
Yeah, these are real people. They have interacted with you in lives. They have acknowledged your comments. They, you can actually see them, get a selfie with them. They're approachable. And that is one of the biggest things that kind of separates a celebrity from an internet celebrity, right? Is they're approachable, they're accessible, and they respond. As opposed to just wave. And then when, so there is an added element of, you're not enamored by them as much as entrusting of these people, because they're one of us who have been able to, through hard work and talent, get onto the other side. And so when that trust breaks, that's heartbreaking.
And I think back on that Vault thing, because I remember reading the piece that you put down. And I remember Ankur's response. I thought he was the most measured, thought through one of all. The fact that he said, I have gotten paid this much money. I have invested this much myself, and this is how much of my own money that's stuck. And I'm going to speak to the founder. And I feel that came from the fact that Ankur comes from being an entrepreneur, having done it, understand this is protocol that you follow when you do a job, when you have worked in a corporate environment. Versus when you don't know that, and oftentimes my bigger worry oftentimes is that even if you're a creator today, I think there's a base level understanding of the do's and don'ts you should do to safeguard yourself.
Yeah.
And by safeguarding yourself, you're safeguarding the audience as well.
Yeah.
Especially in sectors like this, like you mentioned earlier that China, right, might have this kind of a thing. It's important to have that in these categories. It could be, let's say, like some people keep asking me, what protein shake do you use? And I'm like, I don't know if I should suggest the brand, because I'm like, what if it works for me and you get some bloating or whatever?
Yeah, Varun, this is so true. Very recently, I mean, not as high stakes as a protein shake, but somebody asked me, oh, this is a nice jumpsuit, where have you got it from? And I said, I've DM'd you the link, like an Amazon link. Because this worked for me. I don't want to put it out there for somebody else to think. And that's just like an apparel. But you feel this sense of responsibility, right? Like if I'm like recommending something to someone, I'm just telling them this works for me. I'm not sure if it'll work for you. So I was actually very, kind of relieved also with the way Ankur responded. And he was very forthcoming with all the responses. Because finally somebody said it. Because I have not... I feel like finally a creator actually said, yes, we need to be more responsible. I think the industry needed that. And maybe it's good in a way that it came from somebody who has been very open about, their failures in the past in a different sector. And now they've reached a stage where there's so many people, especially youngsters, look up to this person. Yeah. And if that person says, no, we need to have more accountability. Yeah. And, there was this one part where he said, I have to ask constantly of myself that if I'm collaborating with a brand, if something happens, if things go awry, what are the ramifications going to be like? And how do I then, need to kind of be a part of this? So I'm really glad that, that was said. It's also important who said it. So I really hope that people don't, like, I also see a lot of people continuously making memes out of this and hating on people. And I think the people who have lost their money, especially college going kids, I think their anger is very justified. Yeah. But I hope that it, the hate eventually, the hate eventually transforms into people becoming more responsible, more conscious of what they're saying, like, how they are saying what they're saying. And they are aware of the fact that this is not just something that is going to be a kaching for me. This is something which can have ramifications, and therefore I need to be just a little bit more responsible. So I hope that eventually the hate dies down, and this is the discourse that more people start talking about, okay, how can we be responsible? Yeah.
And if you look at any industry, right, and I remember the early days of the first set of creator references, I'm forgetting the body's name. How can I forget the body's name? Which is the body which gave the regulations of how creators should... ASCII, sorry.
Happens with me all the time.
We leave this in. I forgot ASCII's name. So I remember that when ASCII did that sessions, and I was part of one or two of them.
ASCII Tessie.
I remember that I had been in a few of those sessions, and I think one of the core things we spoke about was the fact that we need, and I like the fact that session had creators, it had brands, it had platforms on it. But the whole point was that you get to that form of regulation, and if you do a throwback to what happened to television first came to India, it was obviously hyper-regulated from a government standpoint. Satellite kind of came in. As something becomes mass, you have to regulate it to a level for it to have checks and balances. Yeah. Like when I worked in television, you couldn't say the F word on TV. You would have an entire department whose job is to run through everything and beep them out. Yeah. You just make fun of them because their job was literally watch all the content and beep stuff out.
उस ज़माने में वो content moderation होता था. Imagine.
I mean, people would be in the department like, what do you do all day? I watch content and I beep stuff out. I was like, and so, but in hindsight, what they did was so important because sometimes we would miss things, and they would kind of safeguard, let's say, the channel and the company. I think
that's the, like, if we were to trace the evolution of content moderation, like that's where it began. Yeah. Like that was like a first world problem was time. We have to beep out all the French.
Yeah, beep out all the French.
Look at what
don't say anything which is now. Like, overtly, wrong from a religious standpoint, something which is demeaning to someone. So they had those guardrails and they had to literally watch and do that. In many ways, social media moderation is that. Yeah. But the fact that a large part of our conversation today has spoken about the enormity of what this industry is, people don't get, and also the amount of different pieces within it and the multi-layered chaos which is there existent in many parts. I don't think chaos may be a little overstatement, but I think there is a lot happening.
Yeah, I think creators at this point have become that one person in our family जिसकी सब सुनते हैं. That's what they are. And
this is again that Chintu aao naach ke dikha. It's that. But Chintu also will tell us what mutual fund to buy. Chintu will also tell us what face cream to buy. Will also sell us a course, which is, and that is the most interesting. Everybody has a course now. I've had a course. I actually make one of people who had courses. And I feel the interesting part with this is that you're finally counterpart by so much is happening. And you're having to organize it, which is why it's an economy finally, right?
I also wonder who's influencing the influencers. I don't know why I just thought of it.
Actually, I have an interesting point on that. One of the most interesting aspects which I feel is slowly picking up, and I think there are enough people doing it, is that people training the people who work with creators. Who's training the editors? Who's training the one shooting?
That's a big gap.
Who's training this? Who's looking at and a lot of them are self-trained. A lot of them I met. Okay, I worked with this creator. I interned with them for 6 months. I got into this, but
they reach out cold saying, "Hey, I'd love to make this for
school?
You." Where's the YouTube school?
Yeah.
Correct.
You have courses you can do online, but there's no actual certified way, and I don't know if you need to be certified.
I think that's also a natural progression. You will see in 1-2 years you will have some of these setups that will only be that. We are a setup which guarantees we are trained in making reels for you. We know we are the ones who kind of keep ourselves abreast with the latest formats and formats including memes as well as filters. And we kind of they'll have one AR filter specialist, they'll have one meme specialist, they'll have one somebody who's keeping tabs on pop culture, and one person who, like I said, public consciousness specialist. So you will have all of these people, and there'll be that'll be a package that these people will offer. I think that's only natural. That will happen in 2 years.
I think that's an important one to tap into, right? Because a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are also trying to figure out, okay, I'm at a certain point in my career. I might be just starting off, might be at a certain crossroads. What can I do? Where can I go? And if you are interested in the creative space, these are things you can do. You don't have to be a person in front of camera or in front of a mic, or
you can add value in so many different ways, and you can be at this point, I think the other Rohit Raj, Bhuvan's. I mean, he in himself, although, I mean,
he's a case study.
He's a case study, right? Correct. Yeah. So he was telling me about when we spoke about this creator shelf life piece, something about his, the numbers that he was getting on something that he had shared. And then he said, although I am not a creator, but I was like, hang on. You may not be a creator, but you are also an influencer in some way. I didn't say that out loud to him. If he hears, he'd probably know, but he is, right? So
it's like what movie producers are.
Yeah.
Movie producers, movie directors are all influencers in their own right. I think the business people, I feel what we are lacking actually is really solid business people sitting behind a creator.
Correct.
Those are generally friends or someone you kind of got in touch with, or the creator themselves have a business mind so they can kind of do it. But
I think
where's the MBA for
I think another
creator
thing,
management?
MBA for creator management. I think what will happen here probably, and we've already started seeing this. Remember when startups like the e-commerce startups came up 5 years ago? So you had a lot of people moving from traditional to online versions of their businesses. This will start to happen here as well, where a lot of people, I'm sure, already are kind of branching out from your long format to kind of diversifying into having their own little dharmatics, for the digital world. And so you will have, and the first thing that comes to mind immediately is Ajit Varghese, who's, an old Groupam hand and, is now kind of heading Moj, if I'm not wrong. And so you have that kind of transition that's happening with people who understand the business on that business, on the traditional side, are now moving into the creator side and
or you have someone
bringing a business sense there.
People like Collective Artists Network who've traditionally always looked at mainstream talent, having a big bang social to kind of look at the creator side.
Correct.
And in the other flip, you also have, I think that world is merging, right? A celebrity is now a creator is now a celebrity. And a lot of the tropes of that I think at the top tier, that management, all that stuff is the same. But the question is, how do you build that for mid and small scale creators? We've had Manish Pandey on the show before. Manish Pandey at some point, somewhere in his master plan, is building all of this stuff. What I always believe, because Manish always has a tap of where things are going. But that is the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Who's taking care of There's a term I heard being used in the US called the middle class creator, which I don't like as a term. I like the mid-sized creator better because the middle class only makes it seem again that class is scenario.
Yeah.
But I think that mid-sized creator is where the opportunity is.
It is. It definitely is, because you already have a support system for the tier 1 creator. The top tier creator is at this point someone who, is like how you have these writers who in the writers room, right, who are writing these shows, and then you have the head writer. You already have that for the top creators at this point.
Yeah.
It's the second layer, the third layer, the fourth, fifth, and sixth. These are that is where the opportunity is. So it is there is a lot of value still to be created, in the creator economy. Not everything has to be. And for somebody who wants to become famous, even like Rohit Raj is a great example, right? Even though you're not making content, you are still famous. Your face is still known.
Facilitating it, yeah.
You as a facilitator, enabler, as a business mind, also you can be famous. I don't think you can fault anyone for wanting to be famous.
Yeah.
So, but like there are these routes as well.
Yeah. And
I mean, none of these other people that people idolized before content creators came were like Steve Jobs, who's not someone who was साल में एक बार आता था, मतलब अपना बताने के लिए ये नया लाया मार्केट में.
Correct.
But other than that, like they were still idolized. I mean, actually, you know what? Not Steve Jobs, John Ive. I don't remember when I googled what this guy looks like.
But you heard his voice so often.
Yeah, but John Ive is John Ive, right?
Yeah.
So you don't really have to be on the camera to be famous.
Yeah. Hence podcasts. A whole different space altogether, but we also have to be on camera now. But I think that's also the thing, right? Is that there are so many different mediums, and we spoke about comments earlier, and I remember talking to a friend who's a podcast, and I was like, why aren't you on like a YouTube or anywhere? It's like, I don't have to look at comments. I'm creating content. I'm putting it out there. Nobody's going to, if I find a listener, I'll find a listener. I just keep doing the work, putting it out there. And I think also because podcast marketing is grossly, people haven't figured out how to do it yet. I think none of us know how to really market a podcast because discoverability is our biggest problem.
Yeah.
But I feel that there's so much content coming out of that, and it's brought this whole conversational element of content onto, let's say, YouTube, which is, if you ask me, YouTube is the biggest podcasting platform in the world as much as Spotify is, because there's so many podcasts on YouTube as well, and it's going to grow. They're leveling up there. But with audio being on, let's say, there's live audio on Twitter, and there's LinkedIn, which is my most that's a platform I look at with such interest from the creator space.
Kautuhal ki drishti se, as they say. Deep curiosity.
Because I was talking to someone from LinkedIn the other day, and I said, and this is something I said to them, and I said, this is my hypothesis, that LinkedIn is the only platform where you will never look at a person as solely with followers. You look credibility plus followers, because will you look at someone solely as a follower account, or if they're on LinkedIn? Because you also look at what they've done, what comes in that, or am I totally wrong with this?
I'm just like, I think people go to LinkedIn because wahan se ab memes aate hain. And those are like long copy memes. I think LinkedIn is a place for long copy memes now, because everything which is long copy, or like, let's just say 8 out of 10 long copies there are just like really funny because they just don't make any sense.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I feel that platform is actually so under indexed right now.
Yeah, but the comments there are interesting.
VC term saying under indexed, but underserved in that sense. But I feel that what's interesting about that is that you are seeing people actually using it for their careers. People will not be as toxic on LinkedIn as anywhere else because it's connected to their careers, is what I'm assuming. And it feels like a professional conversation, except everybody wants to sound like Naval Ravikant, which they shouldn't try to be. But beyond that, I feel that LinkedIn's a great model to look at. I mean, I want to see how it scales, because they're going deep into the creator space. But to look at saying this is maybe the civil way to do the creator space, or am I just like being too optimistic?
I think I was just thinking about it, while you were narrating how you feel about it. I think a lot of people will, basis the kind of sector that they're in, will have a very different view of LinkedIn. Like to me, LinkedIn has now become a place where we as journalists spend a week writing a story, and then there is somebody who does a summary of that, and comments they leave the link to your story, but they have got thousands of likes where they've just basically done a rehash of what you have written.
Yeah.
And
my
again,
key takeaways from this article.
Correct. And so then, LinkedIn News also sometimes picks that up, and then, they will just put up this particular publication did that. And that's, I don't know, I mean, yeah, in the short run, it helps these LinkedIn creators, but in the long run, it's not helping anyone because, publications also need sort of crops to sustain.
Yeah.
So if you're taking that away from them, because, the actual link is not going to get a hit, but, you've already written like an executive summary of it and you've got your likes. It's the next time this journalist will probably be out of their job. And so they will stop producing that quality stuff.
Yeah.
So then where are you going to find stuff to create executive summary out of?
Yeah.
So eventually, I'm not sure. But then again, you could also argue that happens on Instagram so often, right?
Yeah.
Where you would just download somebody's reel and just remove their name and,
that's attribution, right? I feel like
Correct.
attribution is one of the most interesting things across
social media,
across
yeah.
the creator space. There is a podcast on Spotify, which is, I think, the Triggered Insan podcast, which is not made by him.
Wow.
And I found out this recently, is that somebody takes all the Triggered Insan content, uploads them as a podcast.
Good God.
But because he has not put up a complaint, I'm gathering, which others would take. Because and this literally just came through someone who knows. I'm like, what?
Okay.
And this is always in the top 5-10 podcast.
This is Nishchay, right? Triggered Insan.
Triggered Insan. Yeah, I don't know his actual name. I only know him as Triggered Insan.
I know of him because
Someone
of
tell
this.
Nishchay, someone has a podcast with your name, you don't own it. You might want to check on that.
Copyright strike karo bhai.
But it's always in the top 10.
Yeah, I think I know of him because of this story that I had written on this subreddit called Insta Celebs Gossip, which is kind of my...
I need to ask you about this Insta Celebs Gossip. I know this has been a nice long one, but I cannot not talk about the role Reddit plays. And most people don't... Like, I undervalue the role Reddit plays in internet culture. But please tell us about Insta Celebs.
It's so funny how, algorithm can be a blessing sometimes, especially when you're on this side. I downloaded Reddit after GameStop. Because it's like, acha yaar, abhi ek aur platform. Like, I'll have to look at this platform also. Kitna insan, like, how many platforms will you track?
Yeah.
And then that was it. I never went there. But because algorithm, it can be a blessing sometimes, like I said, I started getting these mailers about topics that would be of interest to me. Location specific subreddits that could be, because I was in the UAE for a brief while during the pandemic. So I would get, some subreddits on Dubai or Abu Dhabi. And so I followed some of them to figure out, okay, once, life resumes, normalcy comes back in, then maybe I can check out those places. By then I was already back in India. And then I think when I moved back to India is when I started getting a lot of these mailers about this creator, that creator. And that subreddit to me was largely, first of all, a discovery platform where like we were talking about the creators that we follow, right? These were the people who were basically doing in some ways my job, where they were, it seemed like, everybody had their categories. All these people were like, following a lot of these creators.
I have some serious comments on this, on them.
Yeah. And then there were people who were like marketers told me that they follow this particular subreddit. And again, it kind of ties back into how they have teams to figure out who's relevant, who's getting criticized. And so you realize how important a forum like that is for these people, because you don't have like a Friday to Friday cycle here, right? You have like content coming in droves. So you don't have like critics, you don't have content critics here, as opposed to like, in the film industry where that's more established. Where do you find then, who are the kind of good creators to follow, or who are the creators that you need to be a bit sus about? So, that thread, that particular subreddit is just...
I have a full confession to make. After I read your article about it, I went and wrote my name into that and said, was it there? We were once mentioned, long back, saying, what does someone have to say Varun Duggirala? And someone said, no, he's not just a creator, he's also an entrepreneur, does this, and just the topic ended. I'm like, thank God. There are no deeper conversations about me on that subreddit, but I think... And all of these add up, right? This is almost like the backbone of gossip. This is not just gossip. It's like, okay, is this person credible? Is that person doing this right? And I think
they were doing, like somebody from the Center of Internet and Society told me that they're actually doing a regulator's job, because they are putting out posts saying, shouldn't this have had a disclosure label? And it is something that, you need, like, it's like content moderation, right? Like platforms need more people to do that. So these people are not even getting paid to do this.
There's so much more I can talk about, but I want to leave some to get you back onto this show so we can go deeper into the creator economy and everything else around it. Maybe soon enough rather than later in that sense. I'm getting a bit of a nod here from my producer. I'm going to just take that as a yes. But I want to just close up by asking, saying, if you look at where we are today, when you look ahead, what are you most interested for as you go ahead? And then we'll go to the final segment of the show. But what are you most looking forward to with the creator economy as things go ahead?
That's it shouldn't be, but it's a very hard question to answer. I think I really want to say I'm just looking at what new algorithm changes are going to happen and how it's like, the algorithm is the puppeteer now.
Yeah.
And, all world's a stage, and, there's this like algorithm has become like, taken this human form, and it's just like making you dance to its tunes.
Yeah.
And so what new dance forms are we going to see because of this algorithm? So what new changes? And I think I won't be surprised if that's what a creator is also kind of worried about, concerned about. Okay, ab kya naya change aane wala hai algorithm mein? We're all basically prisoners of algorithm at this point.
It's the worry people have about Instagram, right? Is that keeps changing so often.
Yeah. I mean, you have not just the algorithm, right? Like little things that change and how that kind of changes consumer behavior and therefore your fight for their attention. I think what I'm excited about is like we mentioned, you brought the real estate creators and, Ankit had told me about the truck driver / creator. I'm excited to see some of these things, like, how people are going to bring in, like a variety of slice of life and how many more such slices are we going to see?
Yeah.
I think I'm super excited about that.
That's so true.
And how, like, people who have this innate skill where they are confident about being in front of a camera and how they, may inspire others also into wanting to sort of let go of their inhibitions and get into it. And but I also don't want that to, I think more than excited, I'm concerned that shouldn't become, it should help you. But if you're someone who's
Shouldn't
not...
take away your life.
Yeah, that, and also like, if someone is more qualified and more of an expert, but just because they have, they don't have the 100,000 followers that you have, people should not be swayed by that.
Yeah.
So I think I have more concerns and because of the way that this industry is growing.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about the algorithm. I'm concerned about people getting swayed by the numbers and the creators also getting swayed by their own numbers. And I'm excited about, how creators are going to adapt. And I'm waiting to see what the algorithm is going to bring forth next.
So, moving to the last part of the show, which I've almost forgot because if it's a long chat, I almost forgot about it. How can I forget? But this has nothing to do with what we've spoken about. This is more about you. This is us asking you questions which have no connection to what we've spoken about. Although I do think I know the answer to the first one, but I'm going to ask you, what do you spend a lot of time doing outside of digging deep into the creator economy and doing what you do in a day job that keeps you excited?
Talking to my girlfriends on WhatsApp groups and Instagram groups. Like we have like this Instagram group where 7 to 8 of us, we just share all these memes and it just like sometimes it's about us, sometimes it's what should be about us.
Those are the best groups, and I have one of those with my friends as well.
I think I that's like just the best time that I spend during the days when, I go through some of the things that they have sent. And just sometimes when you are active at the time when there is a live chat that's happening in that group, and it just, it makes you feel not alone. Because we're all lonely. So spending time on the internet with my gal pals is the best stuff. Yeah.
What can you put together in an instant?
An idea, I guess.
It's a nice one. I weirdly haven't heard that in a while, have we? We haven't heard that one in a while.
I mean, Maggie also takes 2 minutes. Yeah. So what else can you put together?
The Maggie one is the bait, right? The one to kind of jump onto. People say Maggie, but I've always interested in what people say. But I haven't had an idea in a while, so I'm happy that came up.
My second would have been a connection, right? Because sometimes it just takes an instant. It could come like 5 years into you meeting somebody and then seeing that instant. It can come any moment. But I think a connection also happens in an instant. I fell in love with my husband in an instant.
That is also true. That is, I also did get married very quickly after meeting Pooja as well. But before I digress into that zone, which will be a longer story to tell. Anything?
That's for a different podcast.
Alag podcast. We'll get Pooja back again to guest host this show, like she did some time back. Anything you read, watched, or listened to recently that you'd recommend?
I am heavily into Korean literature, like translated versions, obviously, and I would recommend Kim Jeong. I think that's a book that everybody should read.
I'm going to close off by asking you. I will not do the traditional "Why will Dash not die," but I want to actually ask you, what do you think? And you have partially answered this earlier, but what do you think is going to keep the creative space alive going ahead?
I think it's the realization that it's like any other industry now, and it's now self-sustained, because you know, newer people will keep coming in, and there will be, it's constantly like, you know, some people are sort of getting away from it, moving into different, branching out, moving countries, getting into different professions, and then there are people who within this space are branching into different professions to sustain themselves. Newer people are coming in, more and more of the behind the camera expertise is also coming up. So I think the fact that it has now become an industry that has its own quirks, that has its own good, its own concerning things, and people who just, I mean, it's all like, it's not just entertainment, right? It's just, there is a lot of value that is also being created. Like so many people are now more aware of their gynec health because of the gynecologists who've come on Instagram. I think that's just like changed so much for women, especially. I think I've spoken to you about that in the past as well. So legal help that is more available, and even medical help. Like during COVID, all these doctors who came up on Instagram who actually spent time. I know one of the doctors who spent time learning editing so that, you know, they could make nice Canva slides for Instagram. So there is just so much value that these people are creating. So I guess that is something that's going to keep it going, that people will always, that there will always be people who want, who like doing this and who want to be famous and rich, of course. And then, you know, you have all these tertiary things attached to it as well. I guess that's what will keep it going.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to get you back to do a continued deep dive into this space. But thanks for coming on Advertising is Dead.
I am looking forward to my arrival part 3.
I think we're all going to look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Varun.
If you like this podcast and you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to the IVM Podcast website or app, or wherever you get your podcast from, and look at all the podcasts that IVM makes. There's some really fun stuff there.